Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&A. The sun's setting now, so excuse the weird lighting that's going to happen probably for the first couple bits, but whatever. Anyway, I just want to do this Thursday night, so I could probably have it out either late tonight or tomorrow morning, because my goal is to wake up tomorrow morning and not stop working until this next video is done. It's probably not going to happen. I have a history of getting distracted with, fun, productive stuff, but getting distracted. So cross your fingers. I'm really excited about this. This is something that may help a lot of people looking to do a few specific things. So I don't know. Enough rambling. Let's jump into the Q&As. First up, John Veely asked if I happen to know if anyone has made a Virtual Boy FrameMeister profile. No. I guess if you were to lend one to Firebrand X, he'd probably be interested in checking that out. But no, that's an interesting question. And my Virtual Boy and Virtual Tap is sitting next to me about to get boxed up, because when I finally went to install it, and by when to install it, I honestly mean give it a try, but probably end up having to have Jose help me with it. But when I finally went to try it, I turned it on and I had the normal lines across the screen like I always did. And I figured, all right, well, let me just let it warm up for a minute and I'll go back to it. And this time I came back about 3 hours later and the lines weren't gone. So I contacted somebody on the Planet Virtual Boy forums, who I guess has done over 200 of them. And they're going to be doing the permanent fix for me. So I think that's the one where they take like acid and burn down the ending of the ribbon cable to expose the traces and then manually solder each trace across. It looks rough. The soldering, not as much. I think I might be able to handle that with one of those magnifying helmets on. I actually finally bought one of those. So if I strap on a magnifying helmet, I could probably do that. But I'm really not familiar with the process of getting the plastic off so that you could solder them together. But anyway, once I get that back, the virtual tap kits are going in, and I got both. I got the VGA and the RGB, one for each eye. That way I could always choose which output I want. And as soon as that happens, then definitely I will try to work on something. But I'm very excited because I don't know. I want to do some fun stuff with that. So no, maybe sign up or try to contact Firebrand X and see if he'd be interested if you sent him one. But for now, it's all pretty much figured out as you go, and hopefully I'll have at least some info for you soon. Firebrand X followed up from the SNES digital mod questions from last week, so thank you very much. So yes, confirmed that the random crystal timing of the SNES will cause some receivers to drop out or not accept the digital audio signal at all. There's no internal mod fix unless you decide to go with L-Train's resampler digital audio board, and that's the thing that resamples it to something that'll be compatible with everything. But then that's kind of a controversial. Purists, is it the original? Are you resampling it? Will you hear a difference, won't you? And audio is something that people tend to tease audiophiles about arguing over things that all sound the same, but as I learned the hard way, I won't go through the story again, some sound frequencies could actually hurt people's ears. So, and other people interpret sound differently. So, I mean, that's something to definitely keep in mind. You could not be an audiophile at all, but listen to something and go, ugh, that sounds like crap. But I mean, I would give it a try. I would just try to go for a receiver that's compatible. He said he has a cheap Sony STR-DH520, and I could try to find the model numbers of the receivers I've used, but there were so many that were. I still haven't found one that wasn't compatible. So hopefully that kind of sums it up in a nutshell. Of course, you could just use the analog Super NT, because that's technically digital audio through that. But anyway, thanks FBX, and I hope that kind of summed up all the digital audio stuff. 8-Bit Infected asked a bit of a touchy question. I guess the question was, should I have been harder on Terra Onion? And, I really wish everybody would just move past it. I got very frustrated on the Shmups forum the other day when, when it was tried to just be glossed over. But I think that all the facts that I've said, if you remove all the emotion from everything and you just look at the facts, that has always been 100% spot on before, during, and after all the drama. And that Terra Onion makes excellent ROM carts. Never said anything different. As a ROM cart, the SSD S3 worked flawless. Even the CDs, You know, if you remove the audio side from it, all of that was great. And I think I was pretty blunt about that in the PC Engine video of how well it worked. And I always liked the Neo SD. You know, when it came out, there were some bugs, but it was a brand new product, and every bug was fixed with firmware. So it's not like people had to buy a different version. So Terra Onion's ROM carts are excellent. Their expertise is not in audio and video. So if any of their products come out that involve audio or video, maybe just hold off, wait for other people to review it or something. People like myself and Mobius who love tinkering and don't mind being beta testers and things like that. You know, I wish they'd have an open beta program. It's not like it would hurt sales. Open up the beta to a small group, do a pre-order, and then kind of go from there. If there's bugs fixed, pre-order, ship in 3 months, because that's honestly how long it would take to reset a BOM, get another run of prototypes, then go through production. And if there's no bugs found, you know, then it ships in a month. And I still disagree with talking about me selling the ROM cart. I still feel, in my personal opinion, that was talking about personal information from a customer. Alex doesn't. Alex thinks it's completely different than something like giving out their address, which, yes, it is. It's definitely different than that. So if you're worried about anything like that, if you're worried about any of the owners flying off the handle, buy all their stuff from Stone Age Gamer. Just and I would always, any of these companies, not just Terra Onion, but any company that requires you to register an email address to get firmware updates, I understand why. I'm going to be doing a video on that, and not like a bashing people video, just an explanation, just from a technical point of view on why that happens. But if possible, I would just, you know, create a burner account and an email account and use that, because you know, we're dealing with this with the PSIO SIO right now. I gave mine to Zach, and I can't get an email response from them to transfer it over to him. So, you know, just get a burner email if you think you might someday sell or give away or trade or whatever the device. And that, once again, it's not even an insult. You know, it's not like I'm saying when something better comes out, you'll sell it. No, I mean, what if they come out with something better, you know, that replaces their old one? There's always a reason why you might want to sell or give something away. So that's really it. That's just the facts. That's no emotion. And I would just treat it like that. And, you know, some companies are better at PR than others. Some companies are better at tech than others. And it's just how it goes. But I hope now that they've gotten the latest version of the SSD S3 out, I just kind of hope all the stuff blows over. And, you know, I certainly don't ever want any side of any silly rivalry ever. I don't really care who did what to whom. If it's not about me, I want nothing to do with it. That's a disrespectful thing to say, I understand, but just, you know, no offense to anybody, leave me out of that stuff. The Goat asked where you can get a Tempest 2000 compatible rotary controller for the Jaguar. He said the eBay seller doesn't have any for sale and hasn't gotten a message back. That's Nick Persane. I just talked to him recently, just a few weeks ago, so I think he might be on vacation or something. I would just try back. It was 6 days ago that you posted it, so I would try one more time on eBay and see. If not, if you go on Atari Age under the Jaguar subforum, there's the Opal rotary controller. Looks good. I haven't tried one myself, but it's getting pretty good reviews, and it's built similarly, so I would just try that. And who knows, maybe somebody could make an aftermarket one so you don't have to take anything inside a Jaguar controller. Maybe somebody could make like an original Atari style controller with a Jaguar plug or something. Who knows? But yeah, I would try again, try on the forums, and I'll keep everybody updated. Maybe I could convince somebody to make a really good, completely brand new version of it. Chris Syme had a tip about deinterlacing PlayStation 2's 480i mode, and he said try a backwards compatible PS3. And that's a pretty good idea. Backward compatible PS3 through component video. You know, the backwards compatibility as far as accuracy seems good. I was just really turned off when I was playing PS1 games through my PS3, and it was without a doubt softer. So, but yeah, that's a pretty good. The softness wouldn't even matter if you're doing deinterlacing, because it's going to be a little weird anyway. So that's a great tip. If you have a backwards compatible PS3 and you're playing on a CRT that accepts 480p, give that a try. Give the deinterlacing built into the PS3. So pretty cool. Pablo Romero had a question that I honestly didn't know the answer to, but the GOAT responded, so let's go through it, and anybody chime in if you disagree or even agree and want to reinforce it. The question is there a reliable third-party memory card for the PS1? Originals are cheap enough, but with only 15 blocks. I would always just recommend getting an original because they are pretty cheap. But the GOAT said, confirmed that by saying you're better off with multiple OEM memory cards. Larger PS1 memory cards simply have multiple pages, with each page having the standard 15 blocks. The PS1 can only see one page at a time, but the multi-page memory cards are less reliable, and also it's a pain to copy a save from one page to another. So that's a pretty good tip. Even if they're equally as reliable, it still might be a pain to copy from one to the other. So yeah, as long as they're still cheap, I guess I would just stick with an OEM version. Kelly Greenidge wanted to know the status of the CPS2 stuff I had posted some pictures about a few weeks ago. The only info I have is that some of the stuff that we need to finish this project got delayed. It was production delays, and then manufacturing delays, and then firmware delays. So I should hopefully have something within a week or two, and then at the very least, if nothing else, I'd have something here just showing a quick teaser of what's to come. But I want to make sure it all even works first. So unfortunately, I guess maybe about a month, assuming everything's working. Bo Lee had a good question about splitters. Until I could save up for a Hydra or G-SCART with multiple outputs, what splitter would you recommend to output SCART into OSSC and a PVM? I actually wouldn't. What I would suggest is going directly into your PVM through like a SCART to BNC adapter. And then, depending on the console and everything else, you might want to get a BNC to SCART adapter. And the ones that Retro Gaming Cable sells have a switch on it. And you could go from basically from the output of your PVM to the input of your OSSC. You don't really lose any quality like that, and you don't need to worry about splitting the signal. That's perfectly fine to daisy chain it because of the way the 75 ohm termination works inside the monitor. So that would be the cheapest solution, and I'm assuming you already have some kind of SCART to BNC for the input side, so you would really need to spend, I think it's like 30 or 40 bucks or something on the output one, or make it yourself. The other thing you could do if you want to save money, and especially if it's a temporary solution, you could just go on Monoprice or Amazon or eBay or whatever and get a really cheap BNC to VGA adapter and just use the D-sub VGA input on the open source scan converter. The only problem with that is that it doesn't have access to the low-pass filter inside the OSSC. So unless your console has a filter built in, you'll get some kind of noise or something. So that's just one thing that you might want to keep in mind. And of course, you could always just try to make your own. Buy some BNC cables, some just BNC to BNC, cut the ends off, wire them into a SCART head, cross your fingers. But that's pretty much it. So, I mean, depending on your budget, from $10 to 40 or 50 with shipping, I guess, for the custom-made ones from Retro Gaming Cables, that's the best way to do it. If your PVM doesn't have outputs, which I think almost all of them do, that would be the only thing that might get a little weird. And then you might want to look into things like the cheapest Extron crosspoint you could find, and then just, you know, use your SCART to BNC to go into one of the crosspoint inputs. And then, you know, same thing. You'd have to find some way to get BNC into your OSSC. And then for your PVM, that would be easy, just BNC to BNC. So, I don't know. No matter how you look at it, the situation could be fixed for 50 bucks or less, which is still cheaper than everything else. So I guess I would just kind of see, you know, is that something it's worth spending the money now? Would you still be able to utilize cables like that even after buying a G-SCART? My bet's yes. If you bought one of those switchable SCART to BNC adapters, you'd probably use it again at some point for something, but it's kind of up to you. Cole Voggs said, I mentioned in a different video about dropping in a Model 2 Genesis DIN adapter into a Model 1 with that breakout board on top. He's wondering how accessible this mod is, and will I have to snip any chips to pull the RGB. Middle of the road in terms of soldering skills, but I'm worried about performing a mod that would potentially brick my Genesis. The only other the only ever time you've seen this mod done is in conjunction with an RGB bypass. So, in my opinion, it's worth doing as long as you know how to do it. So first you need the tools to be able to desolder the RF jack, which is a pain. And then you need a flat-tipped soldering gun and a good soldering iron. And then you need to do an excellent job getting the green solder mask off. So on the motherboard itself, the green stuff, you have to be able to scrape that off in a way where you only expose the ground plane, but you don't cut through the ground plane. I mean, I guess if you cut through a little bit, whatever, but you don't want to like go through the board. You just want to get that off the top. So if you could, Cruz does them so well that it looks like it came from the factory that way when he polishes out the area and then adding solder to both. So I guess if you have the patience to do that, maybe I could ask Jose to help me do a tutorial on that or something. I do think it's worth it. And while all the research I've been doing is showing how good you can get a Genesis to look if you do the bypass, the truth is, as long as you're not trying to use dual outputs, as long as you have nothing plugged in or just composite video or something plugged into the original Genesis output, you could just solder wires right from RGBS off of the CXA directly to this pad, and then get stereo audio from the headphone amp underneath to this. And it's very easy to do, all things considered. You're not going to get the best signal, but the other good thing is if you do this and you do it right, you take the time, it's secured. Now you have a setup where you only have to worry about one cable and you're halfway through to whatever mod you might want to do next. Maybe you play on a CRT and you never notice the difference between a bypass and a not a bypass, but you want to upgrade audio. Then you can consider the Mega Amp or Firebrand X's audio amp. Or maybe you just want to do a triple bypass someday, and then you would just use a desoldering gun to take off that little OSH Park board, drop the triple bypass right on top, and there you go. So I do think it's worth it as long as you know what you're getting into. If you don't, either skip it or maybe talk to a pro, because it really is just a matter of desoldering the RF, grinding or sanding or whatever you want, however you want to describe it, but getting the solder mask, the green stuff off right where you need it, lining it up perfectly, and then connecting them with solder. And I'll show you right now. This is one with that exact mod done. I just picked this up a while back, just a few hours ago. And that looks perfect. That looks factory. It works great, and I'm really happy that I did it. So I'm doing these to all my Genesis ones, or at least trying to, and then possibly having Jose help me. But yeah, I think it's worth it as long as you know what you're getting into. Jan Debridius asked, do I know anybody that now produces and sells Furtex Virtual Tap? No, but I hope somebody jumps on that. Maybe talk to Matt from Video Game Perfection, or there's probably a few other stores, or at least people that are used to procuring open source projects. It's a little bit harder than just placing an order from an assembly house. There's always more to it, but I really hope somebody does at least a small run and is willing to keep some stock on the shelf, because I think that's one of those things where after the initial, oh wow, look, this exists, there's still going to be people consistently wanting to buy it as they find it, but I don't think it's going to be something like, I wouldn't tell anybody to make 1,000 of them, but if somebody wanted to make 20 or 30, I think it would be worth just holding on to, and I think they would all sell eventually. So I don't know, if anybody wants to do that, let me know. The files should be available right from Furtek. Christian Meath said that he's currently using VCR mode on his BVM to fix the image skew issue he has with the PC Engine and Master System, and was wondering if leaving this setting on could be detrimental for systems that don't need this frequency fix. Excellent question, but nope, it's perfectly fine. I don't even know why it wouldn't. I'm sure there's a specific scenario on why that's a toggleable feature. I just don't know why anybody would leave it off. If I'm missing something, somebody chime in, but it definitely won't hurt anything, and it definitely won't take away from the image quality of anything else. I'm just not really sure why it wasn't available and on all the time and on all the models. Also, he said the latest version of the G-SCART has the sync fix for these consoles built in. Not shipping yet, I don't think. I'll double check on that, but I think Super G's just finishing up testing and will be probably trying to release that later version on the next batch that comes out. And it's a good question. Does it mean you'd no longer need the VCR VCR mode enabled. I don't know. I hope so, because that would mean that that the G-SCART sync regeneration would have fixed it for monitors that don't have VCR mode, which would be a huge deal for people with that BKM68X card, or for people with H-series BVMs. I have a 9-inch one sitting right here that I bought, and it was expensive, and I bought it just to test this issue. So it's a small monitor I could leave in a closet, and anytime I need to test something like the sync regeneration on the G-SCART, I could pull that one out. Also, that's the only 9-inch monitor I know of that supports 240p all the way up to 1080i, so that's kind of cool too. But so yeah, I hope so, and that would be pretty awesome for all consoles. And the sync regeneration by default might even fix some things that are some other weirdness that we didn't even that aren't as widely known. But all I know is when that happens, I'm definitely going to be doing a video on it. When that happens, meaning when the G-SCART comes out, I'll do at least a short video, even if it's not a professional looking thing, even if it's just me with a cell phone showing people what's going on, because it's kind of important for people that run into these weird sync issues on BVMs. Nick Furlow asked if I had any recommendations for component video distribution amplifiers. We talked about this a bunch over the past couple of months, so I won't go too deep into it. But basically, I think the Extron crosspoints are excellent for this. Pick up an 8x4, so you need it to go to a CRT capture card and OSSC. So yeah, an 8x4 should be fine. You can get them cheap. You can get some RCA to BNC connectors for cheap. And once again, just for everybody that uses these, unless you're using a scope, as long as you're not using a scope, what I would suggest is just buying a big bag of these things, and buying a lot more than you need, because you can get like 20 for just a few dollars, and just test each connection. So plug them in, wiggle them. If nothing happens, beautiful. If something gets messed up, throw that one out, put a new one on. I hate wasting stuff, but that'll end up saving you a lot of money. So that's what I would definitely recommend because of price. If you go hunting down actual component video distribution amps, you might spend a lot more than you'd spend in a Crosspoint, and who knows what the quality's like. They might not be designed for super high quality. They might be designed to run a bunch of signals across a restaurant or across a Best Buy, and they don't need to be perfectly calibrated. They just need to get the signal across 1,000 feet. So whereas Crosspoints, we've all been using them in the retro gaming world for a while, and we could vouch for their quality, and you get a free switch out of it. So I would definitely try that. A few people, including myself, had commented about speakers how next to a CRT. How close could they be? Can you recommend any speakers that are shielded? Aaron Marks said he's using some shielded computer speakers that are 6 inches from the screen, and it seems to be no distortion, even it's pretty close. Also, some people said, or one person recommended, sorry for scrolling here, a pair of speakers that he found on eBay, a wall mount pair of speakers that seem to have some metal around them, and they're pretty cheap. So that's something I'm gonna dig into. Enough people have asked me this question, and enough people have reported that they've bought speakers, put them next to their PVMs, and seen interference, that I think it's worth maybe a topic on the Retro Roundtable. One person did talk about these Wohler. They're kind of like rack-mounted speakers, and they're shielded, and they're meant for production houses and stuff, and they're really expensive. I've seen them as low as 50, but most of them are in the hundreds. That might work. I mean, I've never tried them. Who knows what the quality's like, but that certainly seems to be okay. For me personally, what I do now is I have computer speakers. I have like a rolling rack, and I put those on the bottom, so it's definitely far enough away. If possible, a good thing to have would be your monitor on some kind of rolling station, and then just roll it over and use your home theater system. That's definitely going to be far enough away, but most people's setups aren't set up like that. So I'll talk to the guys and see if we could do a Retro Roundtable topic about that, just to see everybody's opinion. But it's definitely something that I'd also like to get to the bottom of. And over on Subscribestar, I got a good one from the importer. I guess he had purchased a Mister and had some issues with it. So to go through it, he booted up Comix Zone using the Genesis core, but the game detected a 3-button controller regardless of the settings. Only when I told the core that I was using a multi-tap did I see a 6-button controller. I think that's just the way it is for now. There's a lot of weird things like that need to be smoothed out. And I hear a rumor that there's some new BlissBox support coming up that kind of helps with a lot of this stuff. So we'll see about that. The other one, when you boot a game console, sometimes after booting it goes to a black screen and you need to reset and start over. Is this common? Yeah, that happens to me, but also try hitting the middle button on the Mister itself, because that should bring up the menu. So a couple times I'll load a core and it just goes black, but you bring up the menu and then you could select your game. Is there any way to power off the DE10 Nano? No, but people have found inline switches that actually drop the voltage, which shouldn't drop the voltage that much. So I guess Todd from Todd's Nerd Cave found one where you have to kind of put it through an adapter into that. I don't like doing that. I don't, just the more adapters you have, the more finicky it gets. So I personally just unplug it. But I really do hope somebody comes up with some kind of power switch for it, even if it's built into the next edition of the I/O board itself. Maybe plug power into it, have it run a pigtail, whatever. Maybe you could even power it from the pins, not needing it plugged into the side. Since there's an Ethernet port, is there a way to transfer files directly to the DE10 Nano's micro SD card via the network? I think so. I vaguely remember doing that, but I can't quite remember. I would just log into your router and see if it shows up with an IP address. Using the current board and RAM expansion, in theory, how far could the Mister project get in terms of console and arcade replication? Would N64 and PS1 be possible? That's a good question. I think the RAM module would probably have to be expanded no matter what. PS1, there's even talks of people kind of messing with that now just to see what could be done with it. But that's a really good question. I don't know, and I don't know what... I don't know how certain things would affect the other. So is it possible to have a PS1 core, but that only runs in original resolution? Is there not enough power in it to do the upscaling as well? Is that even a thing for an FPGA? So I'm probably not the best person to answer that one. But I think it's certainly expandable. Is there a compatibility list for the current cores anywhere? I'd like to know which Game Boy Color games actually run. I don't know. I think you should check the GitHub and any of the Discords. Maybe people there might have some kind of solid info on that. And any way to tell the core where the ROMs are located so I don't have to use to browse every time. That's something that I hope that they will work on in the future. Even remembering the last directory for each core. So maybe you start up the Genesis core, and the first time you have to navigate all the way into the Genesis directory, but then after that it just remembers. But that seems like something that would be solved in time, so fingers crossed. Well, that's about it for this week. If you're new to these Q&As, please post your questions wherever you found this video or wherever the newest video is. So I always turn off the comments on these because this is really focused on any of my supporters. I do make them public usually about a month after they go live to the supporters, but that's really just a courtesy. This is really a small way of me saying thank you to all of you. But wherever you found this, just post in the newest video, because the way things work, I can't really go back and check older videos, so you really just got to post in the newest. And if I don't answer your question, it's probably because you asked it right after I shot the video, or if I screwed up and actually deleted the segment before rendering. So either way, if I don't get to your question, please just re-ask it, and I'll get to it next time. I try to get these, Thursday night, Friday mornings is when I try to shoot these usually, so hopefully it all lands in the right spot. But thank you very much to everybody who participates. I enjoy doing these, and I'll see you next time.